I am back. So, no planning. Planning for having no plan. No. Having no plan for plans. I don't know. I don't know how else to phrase that. But in general, I'm just trying to figure out a way to work towards interests and goals while being openly flexible, I guess is the term I'm looking for. Versatility, adaptability. There you go. Adapting to the circumstances that make it harder for me to work along a set plan, because my life is not my own. It's sort of like the ongoing statement that I've made more than once, I'm sure, where I plan to do a certain number of things or certain projects, and somebody else finds a better use for my time. So that's sort of what's happened over the last 4 or so odd days, in which I was working towards the goals in a given project, and not only did I no longer have access to the space I was using, but I had to devote my time on several days to do work to help somebody else. Now, I'm not begrudging that, decidedly feeling like other people are using me and my time as if they're their resources. And my willingness to give priority to other people means I don't get my stuff done. So giving priority to other people for their things and their needs and their wants for my time and my efforts is impinging on my ability to apply my own time and effort to my own goals. So I do acknowledge that it is something I will set aside my life to help you. But there's a certain sense from my environment that I feel like everybody's a friend, and half of those people feel like they're entitled to my time and my effort, and their entitlement to that takes no consideration over the impact it has over my life. So I've got to find a way to sort of, I guess in the long run, the real answer is I kind of got to find a way to say, no, I'm doing my own thing. I don't have time to take care of your problems. But yeah, that's a hard thing for me to do. I always want to be somebody who's helping somebody. Not great at saying no to helping somebody. But I'm throwing myself under the bus by not helping myself towards my own goals. So I got to plan that a little bit better, or at least prioritize some of my own projects and goals. Because goodness knows I've got a lot of projects and goals that I think would be great to, keep going on and do something more with. I don't know where it happened in my life. I used to do a lot of things. I had tables at conventions where I sold my mad science projects, my artsy mad science. Well, would we call it mad science? I mean, they were clocks. It's sort of engineering. It's less science at that point, isn't it? But so mad engineering, or just, no, I wouldn't call them mad genius either. I don't particularly consider myself a genius. I think that's a vain goal. But I do think it would be fun just to be able to not sidetrack my own goals and explorations and creations every time something else comes along that somebody needs help with. I don't know. Where is the setup? Where is the cutoff? Maybe I'll just form it out right there. It's a question to other people. Anybody viewing this video at any time, future, present, whatever. Where is that boundary best placed? Because I always feel like I was always disappointed in certain people who are just too busy to get involved with the lives of the people that are around them, their friends, their family, their community. They're just too busy. They're too important to spend the time. But I don't want to go the other direction either, because I've seen that in family members too. It's less common, but there's that who went through their entire life living for other people, and when they hit their retirement age, they sort of panicked. They didn't know how to go forward without working for somebody else, doing stuff for somebody else's benefit. And that's, some people, that's definitely a noble goal. I'm not dismissing that. But when you get so far into those weeds that you lack self-identity and self-motivation, you are an extension of somebody else. And to finally be cut free from that, you don't know how to be anything other than that. And that always has a little bit of like an element of terror for me. Just like, I find that terrifying, that one can live their entire life as if they were an extension of somebody else. And the moment you're freed from that, you're lost, because you don't know who you are without somebody else defining you and your purpose at any given time. I think that's it. It's worse than terror. I think there's sort of like a sadness about it. Like, I really genuinely feel that everybody has creative and amazing things within them. And to subjugate that to somebody else, to never realize who you are because you are subjugated as an individual. I mean, there's a difference between being a owned extension of somebody else and serving a cause greater than oneself. And I think there's finding the right spot for that is a tricky one. Because you could be ever so slightly non-subservient to another cause. So they're not oppositional factors. That whether or not you serve a cause greater than yourself and benefit humanity or your community or your family is not contingent on, I'm just thinking out loud at this point, is not contingent on how much I don't want to call it self-serving behavior, but how much you benefit yourself as well. I don't know. I don't think they're the same axis, but I feel like there's definitely a factor of importance for doing the right path, not going. I mean, if you have an extension of somebody else versus completely self-independent And then you have the axis of benefiting others and making the world a better place, to enriching your own life and making your life more profitable to yourself. They're not the same axis, but I also feel like drawing out of how that formulates in my head. But I do need to find the balance. And I do think this job, somebody said this to me today actually, is I take my jobs personal to a degree that I act as though they are my businesses. So when I go in there, if I see that something is wrong and needs to be fixed, I will stop and fix them. And that sounds great, except for the fact that A, I'm always fixing wrong, who's not facing the consequences of their own actions. And I'm fixing those problems. And I'm also making crap. And I've seen that when I had to quarantine because I had basically my lungs felt like they burned every time I took a deep breath. I was out for 2 weeks and I got back and it took me a week and a half to get it back in order because nobody was doing it right while I was gone. And I feel like there are periods of time where every now and then I just have to put down a whole week. But here's the thing. That's not my responsibility. And the fact that I'm having to use time that could be mine to do other things, to create things, to share things, to encourage others to create things and share things. I could be using that time for those, and instead I'm using that time to fix the work of people who are doing their work wrong. Not because there's a consequence to me, but because I take too much pride in those things being done right, that I can't let them be wrong and let the consequences improve the situation for somebody else. So some of my other workers need to learn how to do their job right. And if they're not doing their job right, I shouldn't protect them from the failures that are a consequence of that by fixing it. So yeah, I mean, I've worked in the postal service, sorting centers, and I've witnessed that firsthand, where my supervisor literally, like, there was a section of our floor, he could tell us what needed to be done in that section, and if I remember one night on one of my shifts, he was walking to a certain area and he found something broken and needing to be taken care of, but it was literally something that I could go over, pick up, and fix with 5 seconds of my time before I moved on to the next job. And when he found that needing to be fixed and he mentioned it, I said, I can take care of that. And he goes, no, you can't. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, you can't do that. I have to get on my walkie, call up to the head office so that they can contact somebody whose job this is to come and solve something. I get why it happens. I have a lot of friends in unions, union workers who do certain things. I get it. I understand, and to a certain degree, some of that's in place to protect workers like I am in my current, one of my current working positions, especially in kitchens. When I've worked in kitchens, they're notorious for their shitty way they treat their employees. Yes, you technically get a half-hour break every 5 hours that you work a shift, but you're not going to be able to go sit down. You're doing a working break. You don't get a break. You just aren't on call for whatever task needs to be done. You're moved from primary in that position to secondary for 10 minutes. And it's sort of like, I've worked in those environments, and I worked in those environments where they tell you at the end of the night, you need to do twice as much work and half as much time. And if you don't, you will get a formal reprimand on your record, and enough of those, and we'll just fire you and find somebody else to replace you. And so you do your best, and they're asking things they know you can't do. They fully expect you're going to fail to meet expectations. It's what they're doing. They're building a list of who's the most failure-prone individual, so that when it comes time that they look at their budget and say, we don't have enough for everybody, they can decide who they throw out. And at the same time, they're trying to enforce in you a sense of fear and anxiety to continue to do the work as fast and as cost-effective for the office as possible. And so I did work for a company who made impossible demands, to the point that in order to achieve the work that needed to be done, and they were unwilling to pay me the hours to do it. And this is food, so you have to do food safely. And in order to make sure that the food was done safely, I would go clock out, and then I would come back and finish the job off the clock. That's grossly illegal for them to do it. They knew that was what was happening, and they put the system in place in such a way that it had to happen that way, because they knew they were benefiting from that. And that's exactly the kind of thing that a union is trying to make sure employers don't do to their employees. At least, ideally, that's what a union is supposed to be trying to do. They get bogged down in some of their own bureaucracies, and they do their own shady little versions of things. But, yep, I do feel like, in a certain sense, that caught off guard when so many of my working peer members, like, they were deliberately taking advantage of the chance to come in, do as little as possible, and get a paycheck for existing. Then go home and not think a lick about it. And they do that job full well knowing that they'd shift over to something else as soon as the employer decided that was more trouble than they were worth. But the thing that always got me about it was the employers never catch on to these people. We call them wall holders when I worked in the kitchen. They're the people that got the job. They'd lean against the wall their whole shift, but they always still had that job. Like, yeah, usually they'd work a year or two and then disappear and go find another job. Then let that slide, but they don't give a crap about the pride and effort I put into what I'm doing. Maybe I should just stop putting the extra effort into that and just do the wall holding. Give me a paycheck for showing up, and I'll do my own thing on my own time. I come in for a shift for 4 hours one day. You don't get to tell me that, oh, no, you need to do a full 10-hour shift because somebody else didn't show up. No, it's not my responsibility. I'm on the schedule for 4. I'm out when that clock hits that. Like, I should legitimately do that. I just find it too hard to do that. I take pride in making sure that I've made the job better for my having been there. But anyway, That's also one of the reasons why I think, to a certain degree, I'd like to think that I have not really ever been fired from a job. I've been let go when there have been less um, hours. And in some of those cases, I have deliberately said to my employer, look, I know I can survive if you don't have me as an employee. I can live for months without a job, and I can find another job relatively easily. So it doesn't hurt me to go without a job. Many of my coworkers in some of those jobs that I've worked over the years have been young single mothers, and they need that work. So there's always been a part of me that when I go into a job like that, I tell my employer, look, they need that job. I don't mind this job, and I do this job well. I like doing this job, and I appreciate having the chance to do the job. But if the day comes where it's a choice between them and me, keep them. I've said it to a few employers. It doesn't always make for a good hire. I've had a couple said that interviews, and I said that in interviews, and I didn't get the job, and I think that was a contributing factor. Because it makes you look like somebody who's just there for the time period. You're not invested in being a part of the organization or whatever thing they've sold the manager on. We're part of a team. We work together. You never work together. I have never seen one of those team build. Partly because I'm curious. I do remember one job interview I had at one point. I kind of wish I had taken it a little more seriously. But again, it wasn't because it was going to be an amazing paying job or that the team there was the most amazing team that I wanted to become a member of permanently. I occasionally do jobs like that just for that reason. I think one of the other things I've always said was I don't take jobs because they pay the most, and I don't take jobs before. So like when I worked at the university kitchen, I did a basic load of food preparation and sous chef stuff and serving, and I basically did multiple jobs there, and the pay was crappy. Like one of my friends, when he found out how much I got paid for that job, is like, you got what? Like, that's not right. You should get at least another 50% more than what you were getting. Like, you could walk out the door on a job like that and go to any restaurant anywhere and get paid almost double what I was getting paid. But here's the gym. I had free access to the school library. I could attend sporting events for free with a culinary program, so we had good quality food. I got free meals every time I worked. And it was also a school with a very business-oriented education system. So it was built around business and finance. And so every year I could get professional accountants in training to get training on accounting through managing my accounts for taxes and those types of things. They basically did it for me for free, but it also got them hands-on experience with accounting. And so like all of that were some of the aspects. I even had an advantage at one point because as a university staff member, there were university events. You gave me a job where you paid me minimum wage and you gave me all of those types of things within that job, I would take that job over a job that paid $13 that job. I feel like all of those things, if I were to try to hunt down and pay for them, like how much would it cost me to get something into an art gallery? How much would it cost me to attend a sporting event once a week? How much would it cost me for a gym membership? How much would it cost me for a access to some of the stuff at a university library that you can't find at a public library. How much would it cost me to get an accountant each year for some of those things? Like all of those things, I really feel like the benefit from those was in excess of what I could buy with the amount of money they could give me for a higher pay rate. And so it was just sort of like, yeah, I didn't always take advantage of that. One of the other things I did take advantage of all the time was they have a computer labs on the university property. And I had a computer, but it barely worked, and it wasn't, I couldn't afford internet where I was living at the time. So I literally had a very old computer that was essentially just a heavy typewriter. And I could go over to the university computer labs and use their scanner to, and that's the Goober Nice to Meet You webcomic that I made. And the other one, The People of the Clear Waters, those were all done by hand on. If I could find more jobs like that more often that had those types of advantages, I would take that way more often. But, you know, it's like the trade-off is, you know, I could go work at a kitchen in a McDonald's or a local restaurant and get paid $13 an hour, which would be more than minimum wage or whatever. But I wouldn't get any of those other benefits. And I feel like I would be poorer for the lack of those benefits. I do remember attending I think it was a lecture on Renaissance medicine, and just finding it just completely rewarding for that afternoon. I mean, there was so much I liked about the advantages of that kind of job. And I've done that with other jobs that I've done, is like the benefits of, like I did a retail job similar to what I'm doing right now for some of my work, where the real benefit was that we had a lot of stuff that was already low discounted prices, and employees most of the year got a 20% discount off of those prices. And at certain times, like Christmas time, you could get upwards of 40% off of the sales price that we had, which was already 30% less than it would cost at a regular retail store. And so I was getting stuff at like half price all the time. I bought marble, like real marble cheese cutting boards, and marble handled tools, bamboo cutting boards, and bamboo drawer organizers for kitchen stuff. And it's like the cheese cutter, the utensils, the drawer organizer, all of these things, like bamboo and marble and high quality stuff, I probably paid like $7 to $12 maximum for all of it. Now, if I'd been really into it, I probably could have used those opportunities where I got major discounts and purchased a lot that they stock up on, like they bulk buy, and they resell on Amazon. And I know a couple of them are making full-time income off of it. And I also happen to know that there are features that you could, if you really wanted to, you could take advantage of. There's ways that you can become a sort of like you can order directly from the company rather than come in and buy off the shelf. If you know what you're doing, you can do that from the companies that I work at. So you could, we've had a few crafters who do that particularly. Like one of the things I should be doing, and I just haven't started doing it yet, is we do a lot of glassware and plateware. We sell a lot of, like, we have silverware, glassware, plateware, like wine goblets to tumblers to pint glasses, companies, specialty lines. And order 150 wine glasses, and then with a simple sandblaster and some vinyl stickers or some etching creams, customize or put slogans or artwork onto glassware. And then I can sell those pieces of glassware. And that the thing is, I could get each one of those pieces of glassware for just like a marginal price. So 150 glasses would cost me probably $150. But I could sell each one of the etched glasses for somewhere in the range of probably $3 to $5. And I've seen some people who have done stuff like that. I've also seen some people who have bought some of our textiles, cloth and stuff like that. And they get the made cloths, and then they just do a custom embroidery piece on it, and or do some applique on other stuff. And the end result of a lot of that is like they're selling it for 5 times what it costs them to buy the base piece, and the amount of effort and time they're putting into it is maybe 10 minutes. So they're getting a major markup on that. One of the other gigs that I've worked is a place that does food retail, and we've got foods that like you can buy. One guy does the Amazon reselling stuff, and he comes in about every 2 weeks, and he buys boxes of spaghetti noodles for, I think it's like 98 cents or $1 a box, something like that. And he takes 4 of those boxes, bundles them as a group, and sells them as a 4-pack on Amazon for $10 a pack. For $10 for the 4-pack. So he's paying about $4. He's selling for 10. And he does it regularly. I should be taking advantage of those same patterns. It's just like, I don't think that way. That's not usually my mode of thinking. I'm a little bit more of the, I want free classes. I want to learn something new. I want access to computer or electronics or technology that I don't own. I don't know. There's more appeal to me for that than, cashing in on some money fountain. But I think I have to just change my mind on that a little bit. I have to work towards appreciating the potential. Honestly, one of the other things I'm thinking about was there's a lot of people who are out there doing basically like those pep talks, like you can be a self-made millionaire by doing this, 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 and this. And it's half the time it's full of BS. And so there's a part of me that just wants to try it out. Like what would I have to learn to do the Amazon reselling of 4 boxes of pasta for $10? What would I have to do that? What would I have to do in order to be able to set up a craft business through like an Etsy website and do etched glass work? Like, what would it cost? How much time? How much effort? How do you get that to the attention of buyers? How do you market that kind of thing? That kind of then making that a job. But by the same token, I'm pretty sure I'd get paid better doing that reselling on Amazon than I'm getting paid at that one job that I've been doing that at. So I don't know. I'm having to think about it a bit. Just call it here. Working again tomorrow. Hopefully not a surprise double shift. I will possibly be back in a sufficient enough time to do the buffering, I don't know why that's happening. I don't know if it's on your end or my end. I have actually recorded a bunch of taste tests recently. I know they're not the best thing for what I've done on this, but I've been recording them using OBS and saving the files to my desktop with the intent that I can go in and tighten them up and fix up some edit, like clip out some of the dead time in editing software, and then post them separately. Because I think some of the ways I've done some of these in the past isn't the best way to do it. I've been recording them live, then pulling them back off and then re-uploading them, which I think is a clumsy way to do it. But it's one way to do it. So I'm thinking as I go forward with some more of my pre-recorded video stuff, it might work better. Because I don't think you have, like, I don't imagine you have trouble watching a regular video on YouTube. I would wager you don't have any trouble if you went and did a search for a video on aluminum foundries. You wouldn't have that buffering issue that you have when I do the videos live. So I'm thinking of doing a little more switch over to doing less live. And if I do live videos, I may keep them shorter now. And I want to do more edited and pre-recorded stuff. So I want to see if that maybe helps. I might go back into trying to do some of those Premiere videos too, where there's a launch time, and before that there's like that kind of wait window, and then when the launch time happens, the video goes up, and I can live chat on the side while the video happens. But I can't respond to things in video. I can only chat on the side about it. I might do more of that. I might explore some of that too. And I guess this year's, as much of a clumsy mess as this year has been so far, this year might be just a year for experimenting with new ways to do things. I'll look into it. But for now, I want to thank you for joining me. I hope you're doing okay, and I will see you for the next one. Until then, see if we still